Alright, hello everyone, my name is Carson Tang, and I did my project on smoking, a leading factor for the death of chronic respiratory diseases derived from global burden of disease study of 2019. Alright, so for the background physiology, the main focus of the study was based on the respiratory system, and the importance of the study was to discover what had been the leading cause of chronic respiratory diseases, or CRDS, and finding trends of CRDS in different economic areas and or sex. And so this relates to our class because it discusses the harm of pollution, smoke, and particulates for not only the lungs and also for the respiratory system as a whole. And so the main question of the study was to see if there are any differences in incidences, death, age standardized incidence rate, or ASI for short, and age standardized death rate, or ASDR for short, of CRDS in 204 countries and regions based on specific geographical areas and or gender. And so the relevance of the study is to measure if there are areas with different economic factors around the world that are more affected by CRDS, such as like areas that are more affluent or areas that are more like poor than others. And also it asks the question of like, does being a male or female make you more susceptible to being affected by CRDS? Like what factors biology can like affect like based on your gender? And also see what risk factors contribute most to CRDS. And so, for the methods, humans were the main test subject of the study, and the study was conducted using data from GHDX, or the Global Health Data Exchange website, and this website provides a comparative assessment of health laws from 369 diseases across 204 countries and territories. And for this particular study, they focused mainly on 1990 to 2019. And so the countries that were categorized based on like social demographic index, or SDI for short, and these SDI values consist of national level income per capita, average years of education among people over the age of 15, and total fertility rate. And so the levels of SDI that were studied were high, middle, low, and low levels. Also, incidence, death, ASIR, ASDR, risk factors, and estimated annual percentage change, or EAPC for short, of a CRDS from 1990s to 2019 was measured and recorded. And so for the results, this picks figure 1. And so in this figure, it takes a look at the chronic respiratory diseases. So there are 4: asthma, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, ILD and pulmonary sarcoidosis, and pneumoconiosis. And so it looks at the ASIR and the ASDR of each of these 4, and it looks at these 4 between 1990 to 2019. And so for the ASIR graph, it shows that asthma had the highest amongst the 4 chronic respiratory diseases, which means that it had the highest amount of cases and has been a leading factor in reduced respiratory health ever since the 1990s to 2019. And so for ASDR, the highest one was chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, and this kind of entails that like chronic obstructive pulmonary disease was the leading cause of death for chronic respiratory diseases amongst a lot of individuals between 1990 to 2019. And so for figure 2, it presents multiple risks that contribute to CRDS, and the top 4 risks in 2019 have not really changed much since 1990, but it consists of smoking, particulate matter pollution, occupational particulate matter, gases and fumes, and low temperature. And so these are the 4 main factors that contribute the most to a lot of death cases that are contributed to CRDS. And so the highest one for both of these sets of data is smoking, and it hasn't really changed much, hasn't changed at all since 1990, but it has gone down a bit ever since 1990 with 44.91%, whereas like for a particular matter pollution, which is second for the highest amount of ASDR per 100,000, it actually has seen a 61.8% increase since 1990. And so all these factors contribute to decline in lung health, with factors increasing damage to the lungs over time, which makes oxygen exchange in the lungs much more difficult and harder for individuals to breathe in any air. Okay. And so, for my discussion and conclusion, the key findings of the study was that the ASIR and ASDR of CRDS were much larger in males than females. So this basically entails that males were more susceptible to being affected by CRDS, and there were more reported cases and also death cases that were found in males compared to females. And so the study hypothesized that this may occur because males are much more sicker and respond more poorly to treatment than females. So that's why there's much more higher cases and much more death found in males compared to females for CRDS. And so also, ASIR was the highest in high SDI regions, while ASDR was highest in low SDI regions. And this comparison kind of highlights the association between the population health and disparity amongst rich and poor, because in more affluent areas they have more access to health care, which makes it easier to kind of report sicknesses. So that's probably why ASIR was much more higher. In comparison to more poorer areas, it's much more polluted and less clean compared to more affluent areas, which could be a reason why the ASDR rate is much more higher, because a lot more people are being affected by contaminants and pollution in much more low SDI areas. And smoking was also a leading cause of death from CRDS, followed by particulate matter pollution. And CRDS mainly consisted of 4 diseases, which consist of asthma, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, or COPD for short, pneumonia, and ILD, and pulmonary sarcoidosis. And asthma had the highest ASIR, whereas COPD had the highest ASDR. And so these results tell us that the respiratory system is greatly affected by our environment, where pollutants in the air significantly harm our lungs, and economic factors impact our environment and what we breathe in, and also shows that males are more likely to suffer from CRDS. And these kind of relate to the stuff we learn in class, because these are type of things that impact the health of our respiratory system. And so 2 main weaknesses I found in the study was that they relied too heavily on the online sources, or mainly the GHDX, which I feel they could have done more hands-on research and go to areas and done research themselves. And also the study was much too broad, I would say, because they focused on too many factors and didn't really narrow it down. So what I would do to improve the study is to kind of survey a more smaller area that consists, or 2 smaller areas actually, one that has high and one has low SDI, and compare the 2 areas on factors contributed to the CRDS. And these are my references.